what you have to remember is that we do, everything in the world really is a global market, but even for testing and developing of new medicine is very much global. And so if Europe didn't actually deal with this and Britain deal with it, then it would be dealt with in America, in China and so on. And I think, like I said, I am convinced that the European methods are probably the best. They are. It's one of these things where we'd love to say there is no testing on animals and it's not necessary. You can do by, computer models certain things, but you can't actually finally test that medicine as to whether it's poisonous or not, or long-term effects. And that is where the animal testing, I was convinced, because I came from, when I first picked up the report in the European Parliament, I came from the idea that, we don't need this animal testing. And of course, it's when it comes to primate testing and those sorts of things which are particularly, heart-rending. And I think we have reduced the amount of primates used, and I think probably we need to carry on doing so. So we have to reduce the amount of animals used for testing, but it has to be there as an option. I think the 3 R's is useful, because I think reducing and reforming, all these things are right, because you can't, if you don't set, the industry, for want of a better word, science, some parameters, then I think it doesn't focus. And I think what this does is actually focus science and industry on the fact that reducing the number of animals for testing, finding alternatives where possible, they must focus on. Now, I know they would argue that they do always focus on it, but I think it just gives that extra stimulus. And I think, legislation, however much we love or hate legislation, I think legislation does drive an industry and science in a way that I think is right in this instance, because of the ethics. If you're not testing on animals, well, the ethics aren't the same, but once you are, then I think it is necessary. In some ways it's said that the legislation is contradictory, and I think it probably is, but I think that is a sort of desire, perhaps the political desire, always to go for greater research on brain disease and the like, and at the same time trying to reduce the amount of animals used for testing. I don't know that I was expecting to come up with a report that I came up with in the very beginning, but I did, like I said, I did decide in the end that I wasn't going to be dictated by, just a popular view. I was actually going to take a view that I could stand up in my conscience and live with.